Welcome along to Training Tuesday. My name's James, coming to you live here from Southampton, and a little bit different setup today here. I've got the 250 on the table, not the usual laptop. Today we're going to be talking about a new feature that we added in our new 1.9.8 stable, which is the ability to individually configure the network ports on the back of your MagicQ console. Now this is supported on the current range of ChamSys consoles, so things like the MQ70. It's not on the MQ50, well, for obvious reasons. The MQ50 only has one network port on the back of it. Well, actually, you could get to this window on an MQ50, and we do support USB network and has the Wi-Fi, so yes, you could technically open the window. You can do some of this on a 50, but not as much. But anyway, supported on the MQ70, on the MQ250M, obviously I've got it in the room here, and also on the MQ500M and 500M Plus as well. So yeah, available on all the current range of MagicQ consoles. It's not available on our legacy consoles, so not available on things like the MQ60. We don't do the software for the 60s anymore, but also not available on consoles like the MQ80 for good reason, in that the switch inside those is a separate internal switch. You know, it's not managed in the same way. We don't have control of that switch. So anyway, what's the idea? Well, I've got a 250 here. It's got 4 network ports on the back of it, and I can now individually configure these. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come around the front of the consoles, push some buttons, and as you should be able to see now, you can see the screen of my console. I'm just sharing that screen out from the console so you can see the settings. Apologies, you won't see the cursor in the window, but hopefully you'll see me pushing some buttons on the screen at the same time here. So anyway, I'm now in front of the console and I'm pushing buttons for you. So as you can see on the screen of the console, I'm in the Net Manager window. Now to get to the Net Manager window, if I've closed all my windows, so all good stuff's on the shift. So if I do a shift close, that will close all open windows on the console. As you can see, you've got a blank screen here. Now what have I got in the room here? Well, as you can see in the room, I've got the 250. On the counter here, I've got a Genetics GN2. I've got myself a Genetics GN5. And at the back of the room, on the table, hopefully you can see them in the camera shot, I've got 2 GN2s with some PARs connected. So I've got 4 nodes in the system, but the back ones, they're paired together, so they're on the same switch. So essentially I've got 3 network cables, 1, 2, and the 2 nodes at the back, making my third one, plugged into port 1, 2, and 3, respectively, on the back of the console. So I'm going to go to my setup window. I'm going to go to my Net Manager window. So from setup, along the top right, there's a window called Net Manager, and you can hopefully see on the screen here, it can detect 4 nodes, and I can see the IP address of these 4 nodes. You can see, if I move the cursor box around here, you can see it can see on the table here, front left and front right is a GN2 and a GN5 on the table here, and they've both got 10 IP addresses with a /8 subnet, /8 meaning a 255.0.0.0, basically means the IP address can be 10. Whatever I like. Okay, and then on the front table here, so on the back table, I've got 2 GN2s with a 2.IP address. So I've got one as 2.1.0.44, the other is 2.2.0.22, with a subnet mask of 255.0.0.0. Now, important, I should say at this point, what's the IP address of my console? If I go Setup, View Settings, Network, you can see the IP address of the console here is 10.1.0.250. It's also on this /8 subnet, 255.0.0.0 at the moment. Now, right now, I'm getting ArtNet to only 2 of my nodes, or data to my nodes, I should say. If I go to a DMX.io window, you can see I've got a whole bunch of universes enabled. So I've got 15 universes enabled. They're all set to ArtNet, and they're set 0 to 14 here. Now, if I look at the nodes, and we come back to the camera in the room, you can see, hopefully on the camera, my GN5 here has got 5 blue lights indicating getting DMX out. My GN2 here has got 2 blue dots on the screen. If I flip it around, you can see 2 blue LEDs there. It's getting data out. But my nodes at the back here, they're black on the screen, and the port LEDs are off. And you can see actually the PARs are stuck on at the moment. If I bring my Grandmaster down, or DVO, you can see the PARs are staying on. If I bring that up, down, doesn't make a difference at all. Well, those are the back nodes, which if I go to my Net Manager window, you can see they're on a 2.IP address. So right now the desk has got a 10.IP, the nodes are on 2. They're not getting ArtNet data through, but my front nodes that are on 10. Are getting data through, as normal, as I'd expect there. So what have we added in 1.9.8? Well, we've added a new window and the ability for you to individually configure the ports on the console. So from my setup window, I go to Net Manager, And along the top, when I'm in the Net Manager view here, you can see there's a new option here called View Net Ports. And in View Net Ports, as you can see on the screen here, I can now individually configure the 4 ports of the switch of my console. So that's Net 1, 2, 3, 4 here. We support a USB network, so just generic USB network adapters. They're supported on the console. Traditionally, that was our control net. And of course, being a 250, this has Wi-Fi inbuilt as well. So I can now configure all of these ports or network interfaces separately. Right now, because I haven't set anything for ports 2, 3, and 4, it will default to just copying the main IP address of MagicQ here. So that 10.1.0.250. In fact, if I change that and I said 10.1.0.251, and I go back to Net Manager, Net Ports, you can see that's updated here. So switch port 1 will always just take the IP address of the main network. Where it gets interesting is if I actually start configuring more ports on the console, which is what I'm going to do here now. So, okay, so at the moment, I'm not getting any output to my back nodes because they're on a 2.IP address. But if I was to go to my CamNet window and I go and look here, you can see they're both on a 2.IP scheme on a /8 subnet. And if I go to ports and scroll up here, you can see they're set to ArtNet universes 1 and 2 on those 2 nodes there. Here, both ports. So one of the nodes is set both ports to ArtNet 1, the other ArtNet 2, but it's getting no data because it's on a 2.IP right now. Okay, so I'm going to get this going now. So I'm going to go to Net Ports, and to work this out, first to be able to enable a port, I need to give it an IP address. So these were using a 2.IP, so I can now enter here 2.0. Let's go for 2.0.0.250. Enter. So I've given it an IP. I need to give it a subnet, and it will default, as you can see there, to 255.0.0.0. But again, if it hadn't been the case, 255.0.0.0. Give it a subnet, and then I need to enable what I want to come out of it. So firewalls disabled. Universe zones. So this is how we differentiate now the data that can come out of each port. In my DMX.io window, and these don't have to run sequentially, you can see there's a column here called Universe Zone. And right now, I've set universes 2 and 3 to be Zone 2. And I could do this on more universes. I could say here, enable these universes, set them to ArtNet, and I could say, well, have those come out of Zone 2, which is now going to be, of course, port 2 on the back of the console. Now, it doesn't have to just be ArtNet. Again, you could use any protocols you like. You can mix, have StreamACN and ArtNet. So essentially, it's now saying any universes that are tagged as Zone 2 would be coming out the second port of the console, however that's configured. So back in Net Manager, View Net Ports, I've set that to a 2.IP address. Importantly, you need to make sure it's enabled. Of course, if it's disabled, it will just use port 1. If I enable it, that's now coming out the data there. And if I scroll across to the right, I can choose any other stuff on that port. So I can choose, do I want CamNet on that port? Do I want Ethernet remote on there? Do I want Tensine? Do I want to give trackers, etc.? So I could literally just say that port's used for data only, but doesn't support any of the sort of third-party remote control type stuff from that port. So I now have control off that port here, and you can see if I bring my Grandmaster up and down, you can see I now have dimmer control of these paths at the back here. Okay, I can go in, I can grab them, and in theory, I should be able to open up my color window. Of course, for some reason the color window is not opening, but anyway, there you go. You can see I've got dimmer control of them. I don't know what they're patched as. They could just be patched as dimmers right now, or someone put a macro on that button just to trip me up. Never mind. So anyway, you can see I've got control here, and if I go and dim them, there you go, you can see I've got control of those paths. So I'm getting data through, and of course on the screen of these nodes, the screens have gone blue, indicating I'm getting ArtNet out of these 2 nodes here. Now if I come to the front nodes are connected across 2 different network ports. They're connected onto port 1 and port 3 of my console here. And of course at the moment they're both getting data, because if I go into Net Manager and view CamNet, you can see the front ports here, they're both on a /8 subnet. It doesn't matter if one's 10.1, one's 10.2, because they're on this /8 255.0.0.0 subnet. It means anything after 10. Yeah, we'll talk to it. I'm going to change the subnet now. I'm going to put it on a 255.255.0.0 subnet and the same 255.255.0.0. So I've changed the subnet that I'm sending data out of, or for those nodes, or receiving. And the GN2 and the GN5 here have now stopped getting data because I've changed the subnet. So I've now got 10.1.0.22, 10.2.0.22. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my ViewNet ports and I'm going to be more restrictive with my subnet for the first port. 255.255.0.0, enter on this one. And then I'm now going to go to my third network port and I'm going to go 10.2.0.250, enter. And I'm going to go and put a subnet in. So I'm going to go here, 255.255.0.0, enter. And of course, I need to scroll to the right and enable that port. And once I've done that and hit enable, like so, I will start getting data out. And you can see my GN2 here has now gone blue, indicating it's now getting data out of this port. Well, how does it know what's going where? Well, I need to tag some universes for the other one, my GN5 here, as zone 3. You can see here my universe zone here, zone 3. Well, if I look at the GN5 is set to ArtNet 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I'm going to find in DMX.io the ones that are set to 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, which are these ones here. And I'm going to change these to be on zone 3. Once I've set that, hopefully you can see on the camera there, the screen's gone blue, the port LEDs are on. It's now getting data out here. So I'm segregating bits of my network. Okay? I could say, actually, I'm going to put this one in StreamyACN instead of ArtNet, and have this one in ArtNet, that one in StreamyACN. You could use the fourth port as well, of course. The usual one that we get a good number of requests for. If I was in network ports, I could maybe want, and you can see it gives me a status, it tells me when the port's up or not. But if I want to connect to, say, the building network, to use access points around the venue, or maybe make use of some of the production access points, but I want to separate my lighting data. Absolutely, you can do this now. You don't have to send lighting data out, so I could do a 192.168, if I can type, .168.1.10 or something as an IP, and then I could be on a 255.255.255.0 subnet, and if I enable that, of course, it's going to show me down here because there's no cable physically plugged in, but I've now got it enabled. And I could say universe zones are none. There's no universe zone coming out here, so there's no data coming out of that port in terms of lighting data, no ArtNet StreamyACN. But then I can enable things like Ethernet remote protocol. I can enable things like Tenscene important. I can enable remote control and remote access. So I've got a dedicated port which can be used to remote control the console, but it won't send any lighting data out. Your network guys, particularly on managed networks inside a building, will get pretty unhappy if you start broadcasting lighting data like ArtNet around the venue. So this now allows me not only to have different IP addresses on each of the ports, but it allows me to segregate where I'm sending data through each of the ports of the console. And we have broken down the remote protocols fairly well, so you can see per port you can have trackers, DJ, TouchOSC, media, so things like CRTP, NDI, Viz and system there, and you get a status at the bottom there showing your IDs. So there you go, that's configuring the individual network ports on a ChamSys console. Of course, if you're on a MagicQ PC system, there isn't this config available because you'd be individually configuring the network adapter outside of MagicQ. So this is very much a console related feature. As I said at the start, available on all of our current consoles, the MQ70, the 250, 500M and 500M Plus, available in our stable 198. Looking in the chat, you guys have been pretty quiet today. Good to see the usual faces in here. Hopefully this has been a useful Training Tuesday for you. As we say always, we do monitor for chat throughout the week after the session, so if you are watching this Training Tuesday later on, feel free to drop any comments in the chat and we will pick them up as we get there. This has been Training Tuesday. I won't be back next week, I'm on holiday, but you'll have either Chip or Brett next week covering Training Tuesday. So good to have you this week, and I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.